I wasn't supposed to be home until Saturday. The fishing trip was a yearly tradition, me, a couple of friends from college, and 3 days off the grid near Lake Jacassi. This time, though, the forecast betrayed us. What started as a light drizzle turned into a full-blown storm with lightning cracking overhead and waves strong enough to flip a cooler. By Friday morning, soaked and cursing the weather, we packed up early and called it quits. As I drove back through the winding back roads of South Carolina, I kept thinking how nice it'd be to surprise Cora. Maybe grab takeout, spend the night in something quiet. She'd seemed worn down lately, always distracted, claiming work was draining her. I figured a low-key evening might help her unwind. I even imagined how she'd light up when I walked through the door a day early. But when I pulled into our driveway, that picture shattered. Cora's car was already there. Not just parked, haphazardly jammed into the space, nose too far forward, one tire slightly on the grass. She never parked like that, not even when she was running late. Her car was usually positioned like she'd aligned it with a ruler. I stared at it for a second too long before cutting the engine. The house looked the same from the outside, white shutters, wind chime clinking gently, but something felt off. Not eerie exactly, just too still, like I'd walked into the middle of something. The kind of silence that holds its breath. As I stepped out of the truck, I heard her laugh. It floated through the open kitchen window. Not her usual chuckle, not the tired half-laugh she gave when I made a dad joke. No, this was something lighter, younger, almost flirtatious. Then, just as quickly as it came, it cut off. I heard the muffled click of a call ending. The laughter vanished like it had never been there. I stepped onto the porch, quietly opened the front door, and took one step inside. She wasn't in the room yet, but I didn't have to go far to find the clue. On the kitchen counter, sitting like a trap waiting to be triggered, was an open black box. Inside was a leather bracelet, dark brown, sleek, expensive-looking, with a silver plate engraved in elegant, curved script. For the most beautiful wrists in the world, JT. I just stared at it. The packaging was still there. Torn wrapping paper, soft gold tissue, and a card tucked behind the lid. The handwriting on the card wasn't hers. It was a man's. Neat cursive, the kind that looked practiced, deliberate. It read, "Until next time, JT." There was a gift tag too, with a name I didn't recognize. From Thomas. Thomas? I scanned my memory. We didn't know any Thomas. No cousins, coworkers, or friends named Thomas. And she'd never mentioned one. Not in passing, not in any of the stories she told after work. I didn't touch the box. I didn't say a word. She walked in a few seconds later, barefoot, wearing a hoodie that didn't look familiar. Her hair was pulled back, and her eyes widened when she saw me. "You're home early," she said, her voice tight, almost cracking. "Storm cut the trip short," I said. My eyes didn't leave the bracelet. She followed my gaze and immediately stiffened. "Oh, that." She reached for it quickly, trying to close the box. "It's not what it looks like." Of course it wasn't. "It's just a joke gift," she continued, her tone too rehearsed. "It's for Becca. Her birthday's next week, and, well, it's from her boyfriend, obviously. She asked me to hold on to it because her roommate snoops." I didn't say anything, just looked at her. She kept talking, trying to sound casual. "The tag got mixed up, I think. Thomas is her boyfriend's middle name or something weird like that. She told me to keep it here until Sunday." Cora had always been quick on her feet, good under pressure. But this? It was a performance, not a conversation. Her hands were shaking slightly, and she avoided eye contact as she started balling up the wrapping paper. I finally spoke. "Becca's boyfriend goes by JT?" There was the pause, a fraction of a second too long. "Yeah, James Thomas. He likes his initials better than his name, I guess." I wanted to believe her, but I couldn't, because earlier that week, I'd seen the charge come through on our joint bank account. $97 from some boutique I'd never heard of, Eldon Gifts LLC. Cora brushed it off when I mentioned it, said it was for a coworker's wedding. But I'd known then that something felt wrong. And now, standing in our kitchen, that feeling had a name. I walked past her and into the garage without another word. The trash bin was tucked behind the lawn tools, half full. I popped the lid, and there it was, the rest of the wrapping paper, the discarded ribbon, and the receipt. She'd crumpled it, but not enough to hide the merchant name. Eldon Gifts. Same one from the bank charge. I picked up the tag she'd tossed. A different one, smaller, probably meant to be hidden. To see. Every time I see you, I forget how to lie. Jay. It wasn't poetry, but it didn't need to be. It said everything. I stood there for a while, not moving, not even blinking. The fluorescent bulb above me buzzed faintly, the kind of hum you never notice until your whole world's gone quiet. Cora didn't follow me into the garage. Maybe she knew I needed space. Or maybe she knew what I'd found. Eventually, I set the tag back into the trash and closed the lid. I didn't confront her. I didn't ask who JT was or why she was suddenly helping friends hide expensive, make gifts. I just went back inside, grabbed a beer, and sat on the back porch while the rain finally began to let up. She came to the doorway, her arms crossed, face pale. Can we talk? I didn't answer. I just looked at the lake behind our house, the place where we used to sit every Sunday morning with coffee and no plans. She waited. When I didn't speak, she stepped back inside. The door closed softly. The bracelet was still on the counter. That night, I barely slept. It wasn't anger that kept me awake. It was the dissonance, the surreal sense that I'd stepped into a different version of my life without realizing it. I kept running through it all in my head, the bracelet, the note, her reaction. My heart didn't race. My stomach didn't twist. Instead, I just lay there staring at the ceiling like someone had changed the furniture in my memories. By sunrise, I was in the kitchen making coffee, and the bracelet was gone. She'd moved it. Probably shoved it in a drawer somewhere or hidden it in her closet. I didn't ask. I didn't mention the receipt or the tag or the lie. I just sipped my coffee like I wasn't retracing the last 6 months of our marriage in my mind. That's when the pattern started revealing itself. In isolation, everything had felt random. Life gets busy. People change. Couples drift. But now I was looking with different eyes, and the small cracks were starting to align like constellations. It began with her clothes. About 3 months ago, Cora started dressing differently. Not wildly different, just younger. Tighter jeans. Crop tops. New shoes. A leather jacket she hadn't worn since her 20s reappeared, suddenly part of her weekend look. She used to throw her hair up and head to the grocery store in sweats. Now, she applied eyeliner just to go pick up a loaf of bread. I'd noticed. I even complimented her once, told her she looked amazing, like when we first met. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. At the time, I figured maybe she was doing it for herself. A confidence boost. Everyone deserves to feel good. I told myself not to overthink it. Then came the mornings. She started waking up before me. Not just early like early. Pre-sunrise, before the alarm. I'd hear the shower running while it was still dark out. I'd find her sitting at the table, sipping tea with her phone lit up in her palm, smiling at the screen. Sometimes she'd be humming. I'd ask what had her in such a good mood. She'd shrug. Just got a lot to do today. Then she'd vanish under the pretense of yoga. Cora hadn't gone to yoga in 2 years. We paid for the app. The mat was rolled up in the closet, still dusty. I checked. Once. Out of curiosity. She told me she was headed to class at 10 a.m. on a Saturday. Said her instructor had returned from maternity leave and it was a small group again, mate, relaxed. She claimed it helped her reset. An hour later, I walked past the closet looking for a tool and the yoga mat was still sitting there, undisturbed. Same spot. Same rolled towel on top. She hadn't touched it. That's when I checked the GPS history. Not because I was trying to catch her. Not at first. I was just unsettled. The kind of feeling you get when a song skips in the middle of a playlist and no one else hears it. According to the tracker, she'd parked in a motel lot on the outskirts of town. One of those cheap roadside ones with faded signage and too many security cameras. I told myself it must be a mistake. Maybe she got coffee nearby. Maybe she got lost. Maybe anything. But it kept happening. Always on weekends. Always while I was supposed to be out. I started paying closer attention. She had *N putting her makeup on in full before leaving the house. Not a rushed coat of mascara, no, this was the full works. Foundation, blush, lipstick. Like she was prepping for a date. And the strangest part? She'd return hours later looking exactly the same. No smudge, no faded lipstick. Like nothing had happened. I knew how she looked after actual yoga. Sweaty. Red-faced. Hair up in a messy bun. This wasn't that. Then, about 2 weeks ago, our home security system sent a push notification to my phone. Motion detected. Front door. When I checked the camera log, nothing. At first, I thought it was a glitch. Then it happened again. I pulled the timestamps. Sure enough, every time Cora left the house late or came back unusually quiet, the camera system had a gap. Disabled remotely. She had figured out how to deactivate it. Not just the notifications. The whole system. Only someone with the admin password could do that. We'd set that password together. And I'd never changed it. Then came the tablet. We used to share everything: phone chargers, groceries, Amazon Prime, even a shared iPad for recipes and music. One day I went to use it and saw it had been factory reset. No browsing history, no saved logins. Nothing. I asked her about it casually. Oh, it was acting weird. I just cleared it and reinstalled the apps. It sounded innocent enough. But now I saw it differently. Because around that time she'd also changed the password on her phone. No more Face ID. No more quick unlocks. Just a code I didn't know and no reason to ask for it. We didn't have a relationship where that was needed until suddenly it felt like it was. Even her scent had changed. She started wearing perfume again. Not the kind I used to buy her on anniversaries, the soft floral notes. This was deeper, muskier, expensive, subtle but persistent. Like she didn't want to be noticed but hoped someone would. I once leaned in to kiss her neck on a Tuesday morning. She flinched slightly. I asked if something was wrong. She said I surprised her. That was all. I remember how she used to lean into me. Back before all this. But the final thread, what really set the whole tapestry unraveling, was something small. A photo. I found it on the edge of her desk one evening when she'd left to run errands. It wasn't hidden, but it was face down. When I flipped it over, it wasn't even a photo of her. It was a printout. An image of a bracelet. The same bracelet. The same leather. Same engraving. For the most beautiful wrists in the world, JT. She'd printed it weeks ago. The date stamp was still visible. Long before the fishing trip. Before the gift showed up. Before she claimed it wasn't hers. I set it back the way I found it. Face down. Quiet. That night, I looked at her differently. She sat across from me on the couch, flipping through her phone, laughing quietly at something I couldn't see. Her eyes were lit up, not with joy, but with that shine people get when they're somewhere else entirely. I realized in that moment how far away she was from me. Not just physically. Emotionally. Mentally. Spiritually. We were living in the same house, but she was already gone. And I was the last one to notice. I had imagined it a dozen different ways. Maybe I'd catch them by accident at a gas station, at the farmer's market, crossing paths in the daylight when they thought no one was watching. Maybe it would be an awkward conversation, someone slipping up, a name said too casually in a text. I didn't want to believe she'd go that far. I didn't want to be the guy who needed proof. But I also knew I couldn't move forward without it. Turns out I didn't need imagination. Life handed it to me on a plain Friday morning, with no warning, like it was nothing more than a calendar date. I wasn't supposed to be in that part of town. I'd finished a job early, just some siding repairs at a ranch house on the edge of Miller's Creek. I had an extra hour to K*LL before my next stop and figured I'd grab coffee. There's a little place on the corner of Claymore and 12th, tucked behind an antique bookstore. Cora and I used to go there when we first moved here. Quiet. Mismatched chairs. Good biscotti. As I pulled into the lot, something caught my eye. Her car. Parked on the side of the street, half a block up. Her license plate was unmistakable. I knew that cracked tail light better than I knew my own. At first, I thought maybe it was coincidence. Maybe she had a meeting nearby. Maybe she was picking something up. But it was 10:43 a.m. on a Friday. She was supposed to be at the gym. That's what she said when she kissed my cheek 2 hours earlier, keys already in hand, sports bra showing under her jacket. I parked across the street, heart thudding in that slow, heavy way that feels more like dread than adrenaline. The coffee shop had big windows. And there she was. Sitting inside, backlit by the morning sun. Her posture was relaxed, shoulders slightly forward, head tilted in that way she only ever did when she was smiling for real. Not the polite smiles she gave coworkers or neighbors. The kind that softened her whole face, made her look 10 years younger. She was smiling at a man. Not just any man. Him. Tall. Dark-haired. Broad shoulders under a slim blazer. I couldn't hear them, but I didn't need to. I knew everything I needed to know from the way she looked at him. She reached across the table, rested her fingers lightly over his. He responded instantly, curling his palm around hers. It wasn't a handshake. It wasn't platonic. This was an asterisk Macy. Familiarity. Routine. She leaned in, whispering something, her eyes narrowing with playful mischief. He laughed, head thrown back, easy, practiced. Then she reached up and brushed something from his beard. He didn't flinch. I could have walked away then. But I stayed. Long enough to watch her mouth the words, "I missed you." I didn't need audio to lip read that. Then they kissed. Not some panicked, guilty peck. Not a mistake caught in the moment. It was slow. Intentional. The kind of kiss you give someone when there's history behind it and a future in mind. And just like that, I felt it. Not rage. Not heartbreak. Just clarity. I pulled out my phone and snapped a single photo. Not to use. Not to shame her. Just to remember the truth. I stepped back from the window, took a breath, and walked back to my truck. I sat there for a moment, engine off, keys in my lap. My hands didn't shake. My pulse didn't race. It was like I'd been waiting for this, for reality to finally catch up to what I already knew in my gut. I didn't drive home right away. I drove to the park instead. Sat at a bench near the walking trail. Watched joggers pass by, dogs chasing frisbees. It was quiet. Peaceful, even. And I thought about everything that had led here. The little lies. The distance. The bracelet. And now this. There would be no confrontation. No shouting in the middle of a cafe. No dramatic scene. Because what was the point? She'd already made her choice. She'd been making it quietly for months. I was just the last one to catch up. When I finally got home, the house felt different. Not because anything had changed, but because now I could see it for what it was. A place she used to live in between moments with someone else. She wasn't home yet. I didn't expect her to be. She always stayed out longer on gym days. Probably had a whole routine built around it, texting me she was grabbing lunch, then maybe a fake detour to Target for credibility. She'd even started bringing back grocery bags with 1 or 2 items. A prop. A cover. I didn't check her phone. Didn't dig for more. I didn't need more. I had what I needed. When she walked in that afternoon, I was on the porch with a glass of iced tea. She looked surprised to see me. "You're back early." I nodded. "Everything okay?" she asked, tentative, like she could sense something was off but hadn't figured out which version of herself to be yet. I smiled faintly. "Yeah. Just decided to take it easy." She smiled too, but it didn't touch her eyes. "Good. You deserve it." She leaned in to kiss my cheek. I let her. It meant nothing now. She went inside. Closed the door. And that was it. She didn't know I'd seen her. And I didn't tell her. Because now I wasn't looking for answers. I was looking for closure. And she had just handed it to me on a silver platter. I didn't ask her about him. Not that day. Not the next. Not even after she came home late again the following Tuesday, smelling faintly like his cologne, woodsy, foreign, not mine. The old me might have exploded, demanded answers, thrown accusations like darts in a blind rage. But the man she was cheating on wasn't the man she'd left behind. I wasn't blind anymore. And I wasn't going to be her fool in public or in court. I was going to be her consequence. The next morning, I started making moves. Small at first. Quiet. I logged into every shared account we had: banking, utilities, streaming services, even the grocery delivery app. I changed passwords. Removed her name where I could. Anywhere I needed her approval to do it, I flagged it to revisit later with legal support. I wasn't being vindictive. I was being strategic. She'd built her second life while standing on the foundation I had provided. It was time to pull back the floorboards. I transferred a portion of our savings into a separate account under just my name. Nothing drastic, nothing illegal, just my half, documented, traceable. I printed statements showing her recent charges. Jewelry, spa visits, boutique clothing stores. All under vague merchant names. Nothing that would look suspicious unless you were already suspicious. And I was. I called a lawyer, someone recommended by a friend who'd been through a rough split. We met that afternoon in a plain office above a real estate firm. The attorney, Carla Benton, didn't sugarcoat a thing. She looked over the evidence I brought, asked pointed questions, and took notes in a calm, methodical way that reminded me of a surgeon prepping for operation. "You're not just preparing for divorce," she said. "You're preparing for exposure." She told me to document everything. Printouts, photos, **TS of texts if I could get them. Logs of her comings and goings. She suggested installing a camera inside the garage, somewhere she wouldn't look twice. Legally, it was still my property too. And if anything went down in the house, I'd want a record. "I don't care if you're mad," she said, tapping her pen against her notes. "Being mad won't win you a clean separation. Being prepared will." I nodded. That night, I went home and started gathering. Emails. Receipts. I downloaded the logs from our smart home app every time the security system had been disabled remotely, every yoga class that lined up with an hour-long hole in our camera history. It was all right there, data she'd probably never thought to cover. She came home around 8 p.m., all smiles, carrying Thai food and humming like nothing was wrong. "I figured you were tired," she said, setting the bags down. "Thought I'd surprise you." I looked up from the documents spread across the table and forced a smile. "Thanks." She kissed me. I let her. We ate. We watched an old movie. She laughed like she used to. And all the while, I thought, you have no idea how close the walls are now. Over the next few days, I kept things normal. I played the role. I asked about her work. I let her tell her stories. But I also took mental notes. She lied more easily now. Effortlessly. She didn't stumble when explaining why she had to stay late at the office or why her phone had been on Do Not Disturb for hours. Once, I heard her on the phone in the backyard. She didn't know I was inside with the window open. "I told you I'll see you Tuesday. But you have to be fast. He's working from home lately." She laughed quietly. "I know. I missed you too. Always do." I didn't flinch. I just kept scanning the documents in front of me. The next day, I revoked her access to our joint credit card. It was subtle. I said the bank flagged a couple of weird charges, claimed I was sorting it out and gave her my other card to use. She didn't suspect anything. Until she went to buy groceries and the card was declined. She texted me a confused photo of the insufficient authorization screen. I replied, "Weird. I'll check on it later." She let it go. But the next day, her car insurance app wouldn't load. Then the streaming services logged her out. Then she got an email saying the shared Dropbox account was canceled. "Are we switching plans?" she asked that evening. I just nodded. "Yeah, just tightening things up. Been getting hit with weird spam lately." She bought it. Because she wanted to. Because guilt is good at pretending ignorance. 2 days later, she opened the banking app and couldn't log in. Her face dropped just slightly. She didn't say anything until dinner. "Hey, weird question," she started, twisting her fork in her salad. "Did you change the login for the bank account?" I shrugged. "Not sure. Might have had to reset it. The app logged me out too." She hesitated. "Can you text me the password? I just need to check something." "I'll look for it later," I said. "Remind me." She didn't. That night, I watched her stare at her phone for nearly 20 minutes straight. She wasn't texting. She was reading. I knew that posture. That glaze in her eyes. That sudden stillness, like someone trying to make sense of something that doesn't line up. I imagined she was rereading messages from him. Maybe trying to reconcile his promises with the reality she was starting to feel under her feet. Because for all her planning, all her effort to split her heart between two worlds, she hadn't accounted for losing access. To money. To comfort. To stability. And as selfish as it sounds, that gave me power again. I wasn't being cruel. I was creating space. Space to move, to rebuild, to protect what was mine before she could bleed it dry with excuses. By Friday, I had it all. Documents scanned. Photos backed up. A timeline of events, financial records, deactivated camera logs, GPS history mapped out like a forensic report. I slid it into a folder and handed it to Carla. She flipped through it silently. Then she looked up at me and said, "Greg, you're ahead of most people who've been divorced for a year." I nodded. Because I had to be. I couldn't afford to be blindsided again. I'd spent too long assuming good intentions. Now I assumed proof. That night, she brought me a beer on the porch. Sat next to me quietly. The crickets were louder than either of us. After a few minutes, she said, "You've been different lately." "Have I?" "Yeah. Not in a bad way. Just distant." I sipped my drink. She didn't press. She never liked silence before. But now she was trying to get used to mine. And I could tell she didn't like what it sounded like. It came in the mail, plain white envelope, no return address, tucked between an electric bill and a hardware store coupon booklet. If I hadn't noticed the handwriting, I might have tossed it without a second thought. But something about the way my name was written stopped me. Careful penmanship, black ink, all capital letters, Greg Marlowe. No return address. No stamp. Just slipped into the box. Inside was a single piece of paper. No greeting, no signature. Just a typed message and a phone number. "If she's still seeing him, call me. You deserve the truth. A friend." I stared at it for a long time. It wasn't a prank. I knew that immediately. The wording was too specific. The tone was deliberate, not unhinged. Whoever this was, they knew. And they knew I'd want more. Still, I didn't call right away. I carried the note around for 2 days, folded up in my wallet like a cursed business card. I thought about burning it, throwing it in the fire pit and pretending I never saw it. I told myself I didn't need to hear more, that what I'd already learned was enough. But every time I passed by Cora in the kitchen or heard her laughing faintly through the walls, the weight of that paper in my pocket grew heavier. On the third day, just after sunset, I dialed the number. It rang twice before a woman answered. "Hello?" Her voice was cautious but calm. I cleared my throat. "Hi. This is Greg Marlowe. I got a note with your number." "I was hoping you'd call," she said before I could finish. There was a pause. Then she said, "My name's Ava." The name meant nothing to me. "Not yet. I used to be involved with the man your wife's seeing," she continued. "Or was seeing. Or maybe still is. I don't know anymore. But I thought you should." Her voice cracked just slightly on that last line. I stepped out onto the back porch and shut the door behind me. "Go on." She took a breath, then launched into a story that didn't just confirm my suspicions, it obliterated them. The man Cora was seeing wasn't Thomas. He wasn't JT either. His real name, as far as Ava had managed to trace, was Jeremy Thorne. He used aliases, middle names, initials, pseudonyms. Always just enough change to fly under radar. He'd met Ava 2 years ago at a work mixer in Virginia. Said he was in real estate. Claimed he traveled a lot for property inspections. Within 3 months, they were spending weekends together, sharing bank accounts, even signing for a car in her name. He said all the right things, she told me. He always does. Then he disappeared. No note. No call. Just vanished. With her savings. With her car. And, as she later discovered, with 2 forged contracts under her name tied to unpaid rental properties. She spent months trying to track him down. Went as far as hiring a private investigator, someone who pieced together a trail of inconsistencies, discarded phone numbers, burner accounts. The only thing that stuck was the pattern. He finds women who are emotionally available but distracted, she said. Married women. Divorced women. Single moms juggling work and guilt. He studies them. Plays the long game. My stomach churned. He's not after love, she added. He's after control. Affection is just the bait. I didn't say anything at first. Just listened. You're not the first husband he's done this to, she said quietly. You probably won't be the last. But I figured if someone had warned me, maybe I wouldn't have lost everything. Her voice was steady, but there was something hollow in it. The kind of fatigue that comes from rebuilding yourself from rubble. Why now? I asked. She hesitated. Because someone I know saw him in your town last week. With a woman. Said her name was Cora. That did it. It wasn't just a betrayal anymore. It was a con. An operation. A deliberate manipulation of the woman I'd once trusted most and by extension of me. I thanked her. Asked if she could send me what she had, old photos, copies of IDs, anything. She did. Later that night, my phone lit up with a flood of attachments. Photos of Thomas with different women. Same face, different names. One with Ava. One with a woman outside a bank. One in front of a motel in Ohio. Always smiling. Always confident. Always rehearsed. Cora hadn't fallen in love. She'd been played. And yet I couldn't feel pity. Not yet. Because no matter how led this guy was, no matter how carefully he wove his lies, she still chose to believe them. She chose to meet him. To protect him. To lie for him. To lie to me. The next morning she was silent. Not withdrawn, silent. No humming. No texts buzzing. She sat at the table, laptop open, reading. I caught a glimpse of her screen. She was reading an article titled, How to Tell If You've Been Emotionally Conned. She didn't see me watching her. Her fingers hovered above the trackpad, frozen. She closed the tab, then opened a new one, Identity Fraud Recovery Checklist. Later, I walked past the bathroom. Her phone was on the counter, face up. A few names in her contact list were gone. Deleted. I checked the trash can that night. Tucked beneath tissues and old receipts was a photo. Folded. Torn down the middle. Half of her face. Half of his. Gone. She didn't ask me about the missing credit card anymore. Didn't ask about the streaming apps or the banking passwords. She stopped pretending. Stopped lying. She just moved through the house like a ghost who didn't know it was dead yet. I didn't say anything. I didn't offer comfort. Because she wasn't mourning a lost love. She was mourning a fantasy. A lie that she'd nurtured, fed with stolen time and whispered texts, only to watch it dissolve into scam reports and court case PDFs. And me? I kept working. Kept moving. Kept building my exit. The house was already in my name. A decision we made when we first bought it, since my credit had been stronger then. I'd never changed it. Thank God. The lawyer was finalizing the separation paperwork. Ava sent one last email attaching a scan of a restraining order she'd filed. It was dated last year. The name listed? Jeremy Thorne, aka Thomas J. Teller. I forwarded it to Carla, my attorney. She replied within minutes, "This strengthens your case." I looked over at Cora that evening. She was on the couch, no TV on, just staring at her phone. Her face was pale. Still. Hollow. And for the first time since this began, I didn't feel anger or betrayal. I felt distance. She wasn't my wife anymore. She was just another stranger I used to know. Cora stopped leaving the house. She wasn't sick. She wasn't injured. But something in her had broken. She sat on the edge of the couch most mornings, staring at her laptop like it held a lifeline she couldn't grab. One day it was articles about romantic scams. The next, forums filled with stories from other women who'd been played, some of them losing more than money. Their homes. Their kids. Their entire identities. I'd walk by her without a word. We didn't speak anymore unless absolutely necessary. She stopped wearing makeup. Her clothes hung loose. She hadn't touched the perfume she used to put on before yoga. The brightness that once danced in her eyes had gone flat. She wasn't mourning a person. She was mourning her version of the story. The illusion of love. Of rebellion. A feeling seen by someone new. Now she saw the truth and she had to live with it. Meanwhile, I worked quietly with Carla to finalize everything. Title transfers, financial statements, asset reallocation. The lawyer ensured I was shielded from liability if this man ever tried to use Cora's name again. We removed her from the property. Her access to savings had already been cut. She hadn't even asked for it back. Maybe she knew. There was no explosion. No grand apology. No begging. Just silence. And paperwork. The day I got confirmation from Carla that the documents were processed, I found Cora sitting on the porch. Her knees were pulled up to her chest like a kid hiding from the world. She looked at me with this soft, tired voice and asked, "Was any of it real?" I didn't answer, because I didn't know if she was asking about him or us. The divorce papers arrived by courier 2 days later. I left them on the kitchen table with a pen. She signed them without asking a single question. The next morning, she packed a single suitcase. Left the rest behind, clothes, shoes, framed photos, even her favorite coffee mug. She stood at the door for a moment, hand on the knob, but never turned back. She left without ceremony. No speech. No tears. I watched from the hallway as her car pulled away. And when the sound of the engine faded, I exhaled. Not with sadness, but with relief. Later that week, I sold the boat. I didn't need it anymore. That life, the coastal weekends, the laughter over grilled fish and sunburned shoulders wasn't mine now. I closed the chapter on South Carolina. The lake, the porch, the view I used to love, all of it had become a museum of what could have been. I moved inland, bought a modest house in Arbor Falls, North Carolina. Small town. Quiet streets. A bookstore on Main Street where they still ring you up on an old register. No noise, no pretenses. One rainy afternoon, I ducked into that bookstore to avoid a passing storm. That's where I met her, Lindsay. She wasn't flashy. No rehearsed charm. Just a woman in a denim jacket shelving paperbacks, humming something off-key under her breath. We talked for 10 minutes about a book I hadn't read. She offered me tea. No questions. No pressure. Just kindness. She sat across from me with 2 steaming mugs and didn't try to fix me. She just listened. And in that moment, I realized I didn't miss what I'd lost. Because for the first time in a long time, what was ahead felt real. And it was enough.